Okay, here we are. Alt.nerd.obsessive. Worst episode ever.
Hey everybody, welcome to Worst Episode Ever, a podcast for people who love The Simpsons by people who love The Simpsons about how much we hate The Simpsons. We are here to find which episode is the worst episode ever. My name is Dan.
My name is Jack.
And big thank you to everybody who's been downloading and supporting the show so far. We've gotten so much great listener feedback. It's really heartening to hear that people are actually listening to this, and even better than that, they're actually enjoying it. So big thanks.
It makes it feel less like a huge waste of time.
Exactly, yeah. It gets lonely here in Wii Studios. It's nice to know there are ears out there.
Although now, anytime we try to have like an actual conversation, we don't have the same kick, the same buzz.
We're just like, we gotta save it for the podcast.
Yeah, we just gotta talk really loud on the bus, and we talk exactly with this cadence. Like
we do.
It's just really awkward.
We talk to a weird third person who's the audience. Anyway, today, big episode today.
Oh,
big one today. Overwhelmingly, our most suggested episode. It is called The Man Who Came to Be Dinner. Original air date a few weeks ago, January 4th, 2015.
Wow.
I normally would ask, Jack, have you seen this one? But I know that you have not.
I haven't. And you know what's funny is that this, because it had so much buzz, this would have been an episode 4 or 5 months ago. I would go, I got to check this out. I got to see what all the buzz is.
Right.
But because we do this podcast now, I purposely avoided it at all costs. It's like, I'm going to wait and watch it like right before we start recording. Yeah. So it's kind of sucks because I've been wanting to watch it for a month to see what all the hullabaloo is about.
Well, the hullabaloo it's hullabalooza time. Yeah, it's interesting when you're like, oh, that sounds so bad. Instead of being like, I got to watch it, it's like, I got to wait to review it on my podcast.
Yeah. I love that, like, everybody, not everybody, but a bunch of you came to us. Like, it's just like, hey guys, you have to watch this awful episode.
We started getting tweets as soon as the episode was over. Maybe not even then. Yeah, no, we definitely love it. We love our Twitter followers. We love everybody, and we especially love those of you who click through our Amazon links on weepodcast.com. That's weepodcast.com.
All you pickle lovers out there.
Exactly. No one to date has bought any pickles, but
it's a tough economy.
That's right. Okay, so we are going to take a break and we're going to watch The Man Who Came to Be Dinner, and then we're going to feel real bad about ourselves if you guys are to be believed. But then we're going to come right back and talk about it. So here we go.
Wow, look at all these knobs and buttons. They're clearly a superior race. But maybe that means they'll be nice to us.
You mean like Europeans were to the Native Americans? Or the Belgians were to the Congo?
That's right. Pick the only 2 times in history where things got messy.
All right, so that was The Man Who Came to Be Dinner.
It sure was.
The infamous Kang and Kodos episode. We finally watched it after a month of anticipation.
Yeah, after all that time.
If you could, before we get into it, if you could sum up the episode in one word, what would that word be?
My honest answer, it would be Futurama.
Okay, interesting. Mine would be so.
Just so?
Just so. Well, so question mark.
Yeah.
So.
I'm with you. I say Futurama because as I was watching it, there were a lot of very Futurama-like jokes.
Yeah.
We'll
get into that. Just in case some of you actually haven't seen it, we'll do a really quick recap.
Yeah.
It starts with the Simpsons going to Dizneeland, which I believe they've made that reference before. The fake Disney being
Disney. Yeah, they have.
D-I-Z-N-E-E. So they go to Disneyland. The whole first act is just Disneyland jokes. They end up going into a funhouse or whatever, and it turns out to be a spaceship. They get abducted by Kang and Kodos, the famous Halloween characters. And this is all apparently canon. It's all official Simpsons. They get abducted. They get to see Rigel 7. They go to a space planet. They visit all the aliens. Lots of alien jokes. Eventually, they're put in a zoo, and then they find out that one of them has to be eaten. And they get to pick who. They all pick Homer. Homer's about to get eaten. He gets rescued by a resistance of hippie aliens, but then he gets recaptured. And they start to eat him, but apparently all the fast food and shit they eat, it ruins their diet, so they can't be eaten. So rather than just murder them, they send them back to Earth and pretend nothing ever happened.
Yeah, and like you said, all of that actually happened in the same universe as Mr. Bergstrom saying, "You are Lisa Simpson." I love.
Well, okay, so let's talk about that.
Comparing it
let's
to
talk
that.
about before we do plot. Let's
Oh, you
talk
mean a
about,
much better episode?
Yeah, let's just talk about Lisa Substitute.
Done. Dudley Moore.
Let's talk about Dudley Moore. I love the Dudley Moore impression on The Critic. Someone's eating all your popsicles. Which Al Jean co-created with Mike Reese.
And
Critic.
hey, Al Jean, co-writer of this episode.
So, Al Jean, if you're listening, we love The Critic.
We love The Critic and Teen Angel.
And please turn off the podcast now. No, before we talk about the plot, let's talk about the canon.
Okay.
Does it bother you that Kang and Kodos, that the Simpsons went to a space planet in canon, in universe? Does it bother you that they were abducted by aliens and they visit a planet and Homer cuts his hands off repeatedly?
And his butt cheek.
His butt cheek gets eaten.
Yeah, it does bother me. And I think it would not have been a problem if their way out of it wasn't just, let's forget all this ever happened.
The
and
Armin
it was just
Tanzarian.
Right, the classic Armin Tanzarian Skinner Labyrinth. If it had just been something like Homer fell asleep on a ride, you know, when they set up the out of date Futureland in Disney. If he just passed out and like dreamt all of this, that's totally fine.
I guess I'm in the camp where the "it's all a dream" ending is kind of a cop out because it's like nothing happens. Sometimes you get away with it, especially if it's ambiguous, like Wizard of Oz.
If you must do an episode where the Simpsons go into space, I'd rather have a cop out ending than we're never going to bring it up again.
Right.
Ending.
So it's really hard for me to say how I would feel about this episode if I went into it cold, not knowing what to expect.
Right, we did not.
It's got a month of hype, and this is the most people have been talking about The Simpsons since the marathon, and I don't know if it's because the episode is so outlandish or if the FXX marathon kind of just brought The Simpsons back into the zeitgeist.
People were seeing the old episodes and then they see this.
It seems to be back. It seems to be more relevant than it has been in years since last summer. So I don't know if that affected this, but this episode has definitely been well talked about for the last month. Anyway, that really clouded my expectations. So I really, I had a month to prepare myself for this.
Yeah.
It didn't bother me. It really, it bothered me a little bit.
I wouldn't say it didn't bother me. It's just, we knew what to expect going in, and I think that changed our perception of the episode.
It's not just that. It's and maybe it's because we've been doing the podcast and we've been watching all these new episodes. Yeah. It really is just straight up indifference. It's like complaining about the paint job on the Titanic. It's like we've seen so much crap Simpsons. I've over the last 16 weeks doing the show with you. Yeah. If I hadn't already, I've kind of just come to terms with the fact that the show isn't my favorite. So it's like at this point, they could just kill off. They could kill off Homer, or they could, or they can get a divorce. They could do whatever the fuck they want at this point. It's like I'm so detached from it at this point.
It really is. So when we announced that we were doing this episode, I was talking to my brother who watched this episode the day before we were recording this, and he said it's literally a different show
than the classic.
Yeah,
seasons.
and he's right. I mean, this is not The Simpsons. I don't know what this is. This is crazy. Make 'em up Playland.
Make 'em up Playland.
Which is that's the name of the episode. Yeah. But that's why I thought it was like a Futurama episode, because it's like, hey, we're gonna check out this alien world and make all these like sci-fi jokes. All right, let's go back to the beginning of this episode, because we turned it on and I still cannot get over the fact with these new HD era episodes where they have Marge literally hits Homer with the car. I still can't get over this. I know I brought it up before, but it's still like...
If anything, it's just because it was done before in that Halloween.
Yeah, and it was a joke in the Halloween episode whenever, 15 years ago when they did it, because it's like, oh, look at this. Marge would never hit Homer with the car. And now it's every week. That's how the show starts.
I guess it's kind of symptomatic of a larger issue where they just...
where every day is Halloween.
Well, it's that too, but it's 26 seasons. I guess they feel they just need to up everything. Like, how do you up Homer almost getting hit by a car? Homer getting hit by a car, but it's like if you're, at some point you go, what's the point? Which again is why
that sums up this episode a little bit.
Yeah, sum it up in one word. It's so, and that applies to the episode itself. Applies to breaking canon. So I don't. Who cares?
Because at this point they've broken canon so many times, and
I think this might be it that broke the show for me. In that it wasn't bad. I don't think this is one of the worst episodes we've seen. I just have never had so much more indifference.
Instead of anger, this episode has just cooled you to everything. You're numb to The Simpsons at this point.
I've heard some really interesting relationship advice, and I wanted it to sound serious, but then I remembered it's actually from the last season of Doctor Who. But they told Clara, they said, if you break up with somebody and you're still angry, then you're not really broken up, because the fact that you're still upset when you just don't.
Words from the doctor.
Yeah, well, it wasn't from the doctor. It was
Wise words from the
the
Daleks.
from the PE teacher, the Pink. Well, he's a
When you're
math teacher.
broken up with someone.
I would love to watch a romantic, like, Love Line type show starring a Dalek. Just like, it's like, my man doesn't treat me right. That is incorrect.
You should dump his ass.
I would pay to see a Dalek hosting a romantic talk show.
This is why we're not writing Doctor Who
It
episodes.
would just be Daleks doling out love advice. Anyway, no, if you're still in a breakup, if you're still angry, it means you still have some emotional connection. But if you don't care anymore, if you've ever broken up with a girl or you had a fight where you just don't care anymore, you're just like, good, whatever, you know that's the moment. And, like, that's kind of this one. I'm not even angry. Maybe I'm in a good mood because we had that Popeyes right before we
did.
But
A wee studio staple. We had some Popeye's chicken.
some pre-Simpsons Popeye.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
and it was kind of liberating because I actually enjoyed what few parts of this episode were good. I actually enjoyed them more because they weren't really marred by the rest of the episode, because the rest of the episode is just like, whatever.
It's like, oh, they're in space now? Yeah, that sounds about right.
All right. Oh, he's cutting his hand off. Fine. Yeah, all right.
That brings up something that I do want to talk about, where this is season 26. Like, we're deep into this show.
Yeah.
26 friggin' seasons.
If you cut this in half, it's still 4 seasons past the prime.
Yeah, oh yeah. And, like, I don't want to say where do they go, because it's, the logical step isn't, hey, let's take the Simpsons into outer space.
Right.
But if you're doing it, the show has to evolve, I guess is what I'm saying.
Right.
I don't know that it had to evolve into this, but I think a lot of people who watched this episode and were really outraged at, like, oh my god, this is the moment. And this isn't the moment. They've already had dozens of the moments.
Yeah. The whole podcast is based on that.
Right. Like you said, this is just kind of, we're getting numb to it at this point, but it's a completely different show.
Yeah.
I guess I've already made my point.
I've seen in a couple of Simpsons forums lately, which I never thought of.
Nerd.obsessive.
Yeah, exactly. People saying that they wouldn't mind if the show just kind of jumped forward a few years, like South Park has done, or recently Parks and Rec.
That wouldn't be a bad idea.
Where you just show 12-year-old Bart or 15-year-old Bart, and just kind of just permanently take it from there, because there's at least you have new stories to tell. I feel like I'm against that, just because then it's just really not The Simpsons anymore, even though this is just as not The Simpsons.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess I'm kind of a traditionalist, and like I want to kind of keep that little safety rope, but I don't know.
I mean, it's just,
I didn't watch Rugrats all grown up. That's when
you
the
missed
show
out on some quality television, my friend.
No, I was like, I am not looking at Tommy Pickles as a 14-year-old boy. That's creepy.
It
God
was
knows what he's
creepy
doing
because
in his bedroom.
He had Stu's hair, like that weird, like purplish hair.
Yeah, no, it's no good.
I never watched. I watched like 5 minutes of the show, and I was just like, nope.
Minutes. Yeah.
5 seasons. Hey guys, listen to my Rugrats All Grown Up podcast. It's the All Grown Up.
But since we were doing our couple of RIPs last week, we want to do an RIP for what was her name? She did Chucky.
Oh, Christine Cavanaugh.
Yeah, she's a really great voice actress. She was a great voice actress. It's a real shame that she died She died young.
She died at the end of last year.
Yeah, so that's a bummer.
Yeah, that was sad. Bringing down the podcast. This was already a depressing one.
Yeah. So The Simpsons sucked, and the Christine Cavanaugh's dead. Happy New Year.
All right, that has been our episode.
I would love to see a Dalek give a eulogy at a funeral. He will be missed by many.
You are a shining light that has been eliminated.
Please, can you please, when I die, can you please have somebody at the eulogy just say, I am a shining light that should be eliminated. I would be very happy.
I'll do it myself if I outlive you.
Or Ethan Hawke if you're not available.
Or obviously Ethan Hawke can step in. Let's talk about the episode a little bit more. Let's talk about the whole first act. They're kind of in this Disney World thing.
So it seemed a little familiar.
It seemed really familiar. It was a lot of the same beats as the Itchy and Scratchy Land episode, which is not something we're so shocked of at this point. Like, we know they remix old episodes.
But it was kind of...
But they hit a lot of the same visual gags even, because there was like the helicopter thing, and they're coming to an island with a Statue of Liberty type thing that was a mouse.
It's exactly what we were saying with the couch gag, where you're doing the same joke but upping it. Instead of Homer almost getting hit by a car and yelping, he's getting hit by a car.
Right, and going through the wall.
Itchy and Scratchy, as one of my top maybe 10 episodes.
Oh yeah, great episode.
It's up there. So the very first joke with they're riffing on big amusement parks.
Yep.
So the very first joke is the giant parking lot. And remember where we parked? The Itchy lot.
Right.
And that's fucking hysterical that they just divide the parking lot into two. So they had like almost three scenes of parking that was the exact same joke, just bigger and louder and drawn out, where they take the shuttle and then they do this and then they do that. And
right.
And even Homer says, "Let's remember where we parked," and he wrote parking lot, which was funny.
That I liked. I thought that was funny.
But it's not as succinct as the Itchy lot joke, and it's not as they literally got the entire point across in that one Itchy lot.
Yeah.
Whereas this took them 25 seconds and a bunch of gags to do these. It's economy of jokes. And the entire first act was the Itchy and Scratchy just done worse and done bloated and done bigger and done louder. So you have the parking, and then the great joke is the fact that they take the helicopter to the island like Jurassic Park.
Yep.
And then they do the exact same joke, but then they add on the boat with the immigrants and the dead
right. And
Italian
then the grandmother
mother.
dies on the boat.
So
oh man.
It's like the exact same joke, just bigger and more of it and louder and not they're just watering it down. It's really,
that's a good point.
Why are they doing it?
In this episode, there was a lot of weird death and dark jokes about death. We're jumping ahead of ourselves, but there's a moment where Maggie draws a photo of Homer being killed and eaten.
Yeah.
That was a little dark for his 3-year-old daughter.
We haven't watched a lot of the very recent episodes,
No.
but I feel like I think that's just in all of them at this point. I think they're darker than they were.
I guess.
But I don't know.
Is it so unrealistic for us to want this show to still be? It doesn't have to be saccharine sweet, but the original, the good years, the classic years, always brought it back to this kind of family message, and there was kind of a moral inside of all of the jokes and the gags. And this is just gag. It makes me gag.
And we love shows that are gag. It just has to fit its time and place and tone. And this at least the Simpsons we grew up with, doesn't that structure doesn't quite fit what they built.
I wonder if that's just nostalgia, though. Are we just upset because we grew up with this family and we grew up, we look to The Simpsons as a source. It's somewhere where you laugh, but you learn to love a little bit, too.
It could be a big reason I don't think it is the case, is that if that was the case, people who are up and coming, very smart, creative types, people who would have been us if they were born 10 years later, I feel like they would love The Simpsons. They don't. They've latched onto other shows. They've latched onto Bob's Burgers and Comedy Bang Bang and stuff like that. Stuff that we like as well.
Yeah.
But stuff that 20-year-olds are watching in their dorms right now. Whereas the 20-year-old, I have a feeling most 20-year-olds in their dorms aren't watching The Simpsons.
I doubt it, yeah.
Whereas 20-year-olds... people who are 10 years older than us, they were watching classic Simpsons in their dorms, and we were watching Arrested Development and The Office in our dorms. Whatever the kids are watching, I don't know. Whatever they're watching in their dorms, it ain't The Simpsons.
I think they're watching Rugrats all grown up.
I think the Rugrats
are in
50s.
college. There's Rugrats babies now.
No, but I don't think they're watching The Simpsons. And
that's a good point.
I don't think it's relevant to. I think it's only relevant to older folks because it's been around.
So that was going to be my question. Do you think that they're aiming the show towards older folks? Do you think they're courting that demographic of younger, 18 to 25-year-olds, or are they just? That's
a really good question. Fox, in terms of their advertising and the big structure with demographics, I don't know what they're thinking. I feel like Algie and the writers are just writing for themselves, which is applaudable.
Which is fine, yeah.
I guess it doesn't make sense that you would think Fox would have some say in gearing it towards a younger demographic. I don't think they are. It doesn't feel like it is. There was a couple of jokes. We'll get into that. We'll get into some of the childish humor. You want to go kind of scene by scene through this?
I just want to talk real quick, just in general, still about the first act, kind of, and also something that threw us off with this episode. We thought it felt really long, and I think that might have been because it had a weird 4-act structure.
I think most of them do now, though.
Yeah, I think a lot of shows. I think Bob's Burgers even does that too.
Yeah,
it's kind of disorienting.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm
a 3-act man.
I always felt like 3 acts was the way to go, even though when I learned
beginning, middle, end, done.
But when I learned sitcom writing in college and film school, they actually teach you a 2-act structure, which and I still read some pilot scripts from time to time, and there's still a lot of them are written. I think it's called Sherman style. Sherman's the name of the guy who wrote created Brady Bunch. but it's a 2-act structure that, at least at the time, things have kind of, with the internet and everything, it's much more
These kids with their
decentralized.
internet,
It's much more decentralized. But at least when I went to school, it really was like the standard was 2-act structure, and I didn't get it because what I watched was 3 acts.
Right,
3 acts makes sense to me. I think 4 acts is kind of par for the course at this point.
All right. Well, in any event, whatever the first act was, it moved so quickly. Like, we take notes as we're watching the episode, and I was just jotting down so many things. I wrote down, like, gags that I kind of liked, gags that didn't work, the "Are we there yet?" thing in the very beginning.
So that's the very beginning. What did you think about that? So that's how I feel. It was kind of meh. It grew on me a little bit. It was kind of the same exact beat as The Rakes, where it went on too long, and it was just like, and then it went on just long enough where I actually liked it. The difference is with the rake gag, it went on just long enough where it's one of my all-time favorite gags.
And you have Kelsey Grammer going.
Yeah, and you have Kelsey Grammer. Whereas, wasn't that your like text message sound, or was that you?
I think it was my
Jeff?
IM sound, like way back in the day when we were in high school.
Yeah. Anyway, no, it went on just long enough where it actually grew on me, and I didn't love it, but I didn't mind it. There was kind of a rhythm to it.
I liked. So if you didn't watch the episode, basically they're driving to Disneyland, and Lisa and Bart are in the back going, "Are we there yet?" And Homer's like, "No," and it keeps going on, and then at one point they fall asleep, and they've just set up this speaker system to keep asking, "Are we there yet?" I thought that was funny, but then it went even further past that, and then they actually called back to it again when they were on their way to Rigel 7. Which I didn't, just didn't do it for me.
I feel like that specifically was a comment on classic Simpsons. There's a few moments, I don't think the whole episode as a whole, there were a few moments that felt like the show was commenting on its past.
Yeah.
And I think that was a big part of it, where it wasn't repeating the "Are we there yet?" I think it was almost like Bryce noticed, or you noticed a couple of weeks ago, that Bart said "I caramba," and it was really jarring.
Right, yeah.
And
that was me. Sorry, Bryce.
And I feel like it was "Are we there?" They were referencing the fact that "Are we there yet?" used to be the type of joke the show did in like early, like season 1 and Tracy Ullman years. Like before the show even got really good, they did the "Are we there yet?" joke. And I feel like it was a callback to that, except again, doing it longer and bigger and louder.
Yeah, it was like a remix kind of thing of it, of we're going to do it in a modern way with an iPad and speakers.
And but it felt like it was intentionally doing that. It's funny.
Yeah, you could be right.
The writers of the show were Al Jean, who's been show running for almost over a decade, 3 years, and David Merkin, who, to my knowledge, hasn't written anything since when he was a showrunner in season 6 and 5 and 6. Yeah, which he's considered by many people to be the best showrunner. He presided over the two.
If he
best
did season 6, he gets my vote.
It's really weird that. I'm pretty sure he hasn't written anything since then except for a co-writing credit in the movie. But it was jarring to see 2 great Simpsons writers put out. We've kind of gotten used to it, there being good writers doing new Simpsons. Yeah. But I wonder if the fact that they took 2 giants, Al Jean, before he did the new era, he did seasons 3 and 4 as a showrunner with Mike Reiss. Take 2 classic Simpsons writers, and I don't know, I feel like they were they wrote this almost like as an homage to the old series.
Well, you brought up the movie, and I don't know if you know this, but this was actually originally an idea for the Simpsons movie too. No. So I wonder if maybe the 2 of them had worked on like an outline for the movie, and that's maybe why David Merkin's credited.
That's
it
what
could be.
I thought about that too. I don't have a hard answer for that. I thought when I read that this was the plot for the movie though.
What do you think about that? Let's say it did made a Simpsons movie too, and it was this.
I
what do you think about that?
I could see it being epic enough to justify a movie plot, but here's my problem. It doesn't have any Springfielders in it at all. It's just the Simpsons, which is fine for an episode.
Good point.
But how do you do a whole Simpsons movie without, except
I guess
in the original Simpsons movie, they kind of cut everybody out in the dome. They cut back to him a couple of times, but that movie... that movie doesn't really include Springfield either, but this would completely cut them out of the picture.
Yeah, that's a great point. I don't honestly remember the movie all that well. I've kind of erased it from my
Maybe we
brain.
should rewatch it at some point.
Well, I think we have something in the works for that. But I think if you did do this as a movie, I guess they wouldn't be on the other planet the whole time. I don't know. It would probably be
cut back or something.
It would probably be a completely different thing because obviously you have to fill a lot more time.
It would be fun to see it in Animalmorphic. To see these big epic space things, I could see it. I can't judge it. I wouldn't be against just hearing that as a treatment.
Yeah, It could have worked, but I don't know.
But who knows?
Anyway, I want to talk more about the Disney section, which I actually thought was pretty strong.
Yeah.
I really liked the whole beginning, and especially one part that we both really liked was when they're on the riding on a bug ride.
It's like Mr. Bug's slow ride or something.
Yeah, and it's just the song is just like riding on a bug.
Yeah.
And like Bart tries to escape, and it's like if you get out, you're gonna die.
Yeah, we actually, surprisingly enough, we really liked the song. We liked the lyrics. We liked the music.
Yes.
It was catchy as hell.
And it was funny because you could understand what Bart's going through. They're like, okay, they get there and they're like, the first ride we go on is going to be for Maggie because, then we'll do the other ones. We need to do something for her. So they go on this like kids ride and Bart is like having a miserable time. He tries to get out of it and then he gets back to the beginning of the ride and he's like trapped.
Yeah, and then the song changes to Welcome to the Movie.
Yeah. That was really funny.
It was well animated.
It looked cool.
Like Bart falling from one bug to the other. It all looked really cool.
Yeah.
They took advantage of the fact that it's cartoon. It's animated.
Yeah,
it's great when they do that.
It was a funny moment. It was down to earth.
Yeah.
Unlike maybe the rest of the episode.
No, I genuinely loved that entire sequence.
Yeah, I did too.
I don't think I was as hot on the first act besides that as much as you. Like I said, too much of it was derivative of the Itchy Scratchy Land. The only difference that I did like was that they do a security check. The mascots do a security check.
Yeah, that was one of the other things
I
liked.
like that's a nice touch because, in this post 9/11 world, there's a lot more metal detectors and security checks.
Yep.
And I love the idea that they would try to sugarcoat it with the mascot doing it, and the mascot was so rough with him.
And then one of the chipmunk mascots like puts his hand on the camera for all intents and purposes.
So that was good.
I like that. And then the other thing that I really liked in the Disney section was they had like a Mickey Mouse analog being like, my cartoons weren't good, they were just first. And I was like, that is biting Simpsons commentary that I'm used to.
It's
the kind of stuff they used to do with Roger Myers as a Disney stand-in.
Except it was a little too on the nose. The fact that Mickey or Ricky Rouse, whoever it was, literally just said, hey, I'm not funny. I'm funny because I was first.
You're right. Yeah.
Isn't there a way to show that and not tell it?
You're right, and they could have done that. I guess I was just blindsided by the fact that they would do this kind of satire type thing. Yeah.
Although I am a Mickey nerd, and I was like, fuck you, Mickey's funny. I love Mickey.
I don't really like Mickey that much.
I know you don't. Whatever.
All right. And then things start to get weird. They actually get weird even before they go on the spaceship. I don't know if you remember this part, but they say the best ride that we were on today was the Cool Zone. And it's this like patch of space in the Disney park where there's just mist being sprayed on everyone.
Right.
And then a loudspeaker comes on and says, oh, it's overcrowded. You have to disperse. And no one moves. So they change the mist to acid.
Yeah.
And it literally burns and kills everyone, and they all like dissolve into a drain, and they just shuffle away the remains.
If anything, I feel like that's breaking canon more than them going to space.
I kind of agree with you
because there's got to be aliens somewhere out there. That's not totally unrealistic.
Right, it's a cartoon, crazy, fun, whatever we said, make 'em up land. But they killed about 50 people,
and then they had another 50 people take their place. The joke being that they don't know that they're about to. It was a little Nazi Germany. It was
really
kind of rough.
It really was.
I hate to bring up that's dark shit. I don't want to bring the podcast too dark, but it was, I don't know. Maybe it's because I just saw Cabaret. Yeah, but I was like watching that, and I was like, "What are they? That's not Spoiler
alerts for the end of Cabaret.
There's no acid in Cabaret, Padula.
No.
Jesus Christ. I don't know what they were thinking there. I don't know how. You'd think by like draft 4 they'd say, maybe we should just clobber them on the head with a mallet.
Take out
the
acid rain murders.
Like, I'm sure when they did Wile E. Coyote, they're like, let's drop a piano on it. They never were like, let's liquidate him with acid.
Yeah. And then just shuffle away his like clothes that are left behind.
Jesus Christ.
Anyway, the other thing I did like in the Disney section, they do the out-of-date Futureland.
Yeah.
And it was kind of funny. It was like, this is what your robotic milkman would look like. The joke like being no one has milkmen anymore because it's the future. And,
that was well done.
I also kind of thought that was setting up the sci-fi elements that were to come, like that they're going to actually go into space.
Yeah.
Which, not great foreshadowing, but we've brought it up on the show before when they do that. I think it should be applauded.
No, I think you're right. That was actually a good
It kind of segues you in a little bit.
And I would
to the
say it's actually
stuff.
good foreshadowing. The only reason we're not giving it more credit is because what it ended up foreshadowing was.
But, it was a wet fart.
If the space stuff was great, we probably would be like, wasn't that great when they set up the great space scenes?
Yeah. So let's talk about this. They finally go into space. They go on this ride that turns out to be a decoy.
They get there really fast, not to the
do.
planet, but to space and to zero gravity.
Well, the first act ends. They just lift off, and then all of a sudden they're in space. They're floating around a spaceship. It was nuts.
Was it the beginning of the first act? I mean, the end of the first act, or the beginning of the second act, where you see them with they fly into space and their faces like go back from the G-forces.
I think that was the end of the first act.
So what I'm talking about is that scene. Like, it felt really rushed. It was like not even the fact, again, Futurama when they end up the moon, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, they're in the moon.
Right.
Like it was that, but it wasn't. It was more just like fast editing. Like it was pacing wise.
That's what I'm saying. This episode was just very quick all around.
Which you could understand for a Halloween episode because they only have 5-6 minutes.
Yep.
And even that moment felt like it would have been too fast for the Halloween. If you're taking The Simpsons to space, give us a second to digest it. Just let it all sink in. It was really fast.
Right. It's just like Homer's like, what's this ride? Let's get on it. They're on it. They're in space.
Yeah,
it's just
that's
like
literally what it was.
3 beats. It takes 30 seconds.
And then I was also distracted by the fact that beat was the G-Force beat, which again was done before in Deep Space Homer with Popeye, and it was way funnier. Popeye, by the way, great chicken.
Makes a great chicken.
But no, he doesn't. Why is it called Popeyes? I guess when he punches the bird, it turns into a roasted chicken.
I don't think it has anything to do with the cartoon character.
Okay. Anyway. Maybe is it Popeye Doyle from Friends Connection?
Yep, that's
Did he
what
get
it
his
is.
own chicken place? No, so
that's how it happened.
Yeah. So
Connection.
anyway, it's just another example of them doing a gag they've done before, but not as good.
Well, hey, here's another gag they did before, and it was so much a gag they did before that I wondered if it was like you were saying an intentional callback.
Yeah,
I think you know what I'm saying. It's the potato chips.
It has to be an intention.
Okay,
the
so
music and everything.
Let me set it up.
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone listening to this has seen Deep Space Homer. Fantastic season 5 classic episode. Homer goes into space. They're in space again, the whole family now, and Kang and Kodos say anything you think will appear and you can eat it. And Homer's is like potato chips, and all of a sudden there's just potato chips floating all over the place. And Homer does this. Was it even the same music as the Deep Space Homer?
I feel like it was, but I'm playing it back in my head, and now I might just be thinking of the Deep Space Homer.
But they play some sort of like classical music suite, and Homer is drifting through the air trying to eat potato chips, although this time now Bart is eating them all instead.
And the whole family jumps in.
It is beat for beat the same thing of just a man floating in space, listening to classical music, eating potato chips. But if it was a callback to that episode that was 21 years ago, which is frightening, they didn't do anything with it. There was never a moment where Homer was like, "This feels really familiar," and I wouldn't want that kind of thing to be there because then it's just, you're calling attention to it. But what was the point?
So
why do it?
Yeah, this was definitely one of the. I mean, I would bet my life that it was intentional and that it was a meta reference.
Well, it wasn't. Exterminate you.
He led a good life. No, but it's if there was some small chance it wasn't meta, then God, they're going senile.
Part of me thinks Al Jean just forgot that they did that. He just vaguely remembered that. And he's like, I had this idea.
David Merkin wrote Deep Space Homer, so I don't know. It's actually the only episode I think has a writing credit besides this one.
But why would you bring it back?
All right, so that's
to do nothing.
So
with
when
it.
I said at the top of the show that if I could describe this in one word, it would be so.
Yeah.
That applied specifically to this gag and a few other gags where it's exactly what you said. It was, I believe it was 100% a reference, but then they didn't do. It was literally like those movies Brian Setzer and the Brian Setzer
Yep,
Orchestra.
the Brian Setzer Orchestra films. the Setzer Friedberg.
Yeah,
I think.
the epic movie where they don't do jokes. They just reference. Iron Man comes down, or even Family Guy. Sometimes they just the fact that they're referencing something from before.
That's
not adding,
the joke.
That's a joke. So it really was like. I've been saying how the HD era specifically has been very meta and it's been very self-referential.
Right.
But it wasn't even, like you said, it wasn't, like, what's the word? Is there a word for meta when it's meta but not referencing anything? Like, it's
just like
meta?
inside baseball kind of thing. Like, they're just saying, hey, remember this, but not really
It
saying
would be
that.
as if, like,
we're all gonna think
as
that.
if we're doing this podcast and then we just make a reference to Brother Wright, our French teacher, with no context, and then just completely move on. So what did you think of the next scene?
Brother Wright.
No, right? That's what I'm saying. Like, nobody knows what we're talking about.
No, they don't. Well, Jeff does.
How you doing over there, Jeff?
Yeah, and then possibly some other people we went to high school with who may or may not be listening. But anyway.
No, it's just, what's the point?
Yeah, why? I agree with you.
And then it kind of cheapens the original potato chip gag.
Yeah.
It'll clog the instruments.
Then also, what did you think of the line where Homer is like, this isn't Halloween? What did you think about that?
I think it was just them understanding that was going to be something that came up and them just referencing it. And if the show was funny and then the show was great and they did a great job, it would be like, see, fuck you, people who are complaining. Like, this is a great episode. Who cares if it's not Halloween? the fact that it wasn't a, I don't know.
It just to me is like, yeah, we know what we're doing, but we're doing it anyway. We realize it's a dumb idea. We're just gonna do it.
I don't think it's like we know it's lazy. I think they genuinely think that what they're doing is a funny reference, and they're just kind of adding that line to be like, if you point out that this isn't a Halloween episode, you're not in on the joke.
Yeah,
and I think they're not in on the joke that it's not a funny joke.
This is one of the things that I hate so much when TV and movies do it. They're doing something either weird or ridiculous, and they realize people are gonna recognize it for being weird and ridiculous, like this entire episode. And instead of fixing that or making it make sense, they just make a joke isn't this weird?
Yeah.
As if that smooths it all over. And to me, it never does. It just makes me angrier because they're like, fuck you, you're gonna deal with it.
Wasn't it weird that I mentioned our French teacher from 15 years ago?
It was. No. Anyway, there was also this really weird scene where they're flying through space, and it cut to this comet where a squirrel is like, I can't survive here, and the squirrel explodes.
Wasn't it Rocky?
It was a loose, Rocky the squirrel analog.
I don't know what
But I have no idea what it was referencing. It was with these two aliens I'd never seen in my life.
Maybe Rocky and Bullwinkle did a space thing.
I don't know.
I'm very unfamiliar with Rocky and Bullwinkle.
I used to watch Rocky and Bullwinkle.
I was always disappointed when I was watching Boomerang on Saturday morning, and then Rocky and Bullwinkle came on. I was like, I'm done. I'm going to go play with my action figures.
You should rewatch Rocky and Bullwinkle. That's a good show. It was like the Simpsons of its day.
I was too young, I guess.
All right.
I was like, I'm done. I'm going to go play with my Kevin Costner Robin Hood Men and Thieves action figure.
You were not too old or too young for Robin Hood Men and Thieves.
Yeah,
Men and Thieves.
That was a different version. Yeah. I wasn't allowed to watch that one. Hey, there's some thieves. Let's go have sex with them.
Oh, cut all of this. If you do know what that squirrel thing was, please let us know.
Let us know. Worst Dan ever.
Oh, God. I always wanted to be the best. All right. Then there's the scene.
And there's also the Air Marshal joke. I like that.
Oh, yeah. That was pretty good.
He had a big, thick black and gray mustache, which is funny because it's the exact same mustache that the Air Marshal in Executive Decision had. Nice. He played Grandpa on Grounded for Life. He's on a bunch of things. I just saw him really recently in something. But, Comedy Bang Bang. But, he had the same mustache, and it's like, do all air marshals have that mustache, or was it a weird Executive Decision reference?
Weird, yeah, it could have been.
I don't know.
I don't know. I thought it looked like J. Jonah Jameson's mustache in the good Spider-Man movies. Yeah. I just want to talk about Spider-Man a little bit more. There's a scene on the spaceship. I can't believe I'm talking about The Simpsons. The scene on the spaceship. Homer's using a lightsaber to cut his hand off and on and regrow his hand. And then he cuts off Marge's hair and she grows a hand in her head. That was really weird.
It was weird. It was fun.
That was really crazy make 'em up time. Yeah. That's what reminded me of Futurama. I could see Futurama doing something like that.
I liked when the hand grew out of her head just because it was a good joke structure.
It was a cool visual
you didn't
joke.
It was very obvious, but you didn't expect it, which is just the best kind of joke to do. I didn't mind that. It was just again, I really save us some time. That's
yeah.
So
there's just a couple of So
did the lawyer joke? The billboard is an alien lawyer.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. It was Larry B. Zeeblezorp or something.
The joke is, hey, look, it's a lawyer, but it's an alien.
I wrote literally the same thing down. Yeah, there's no joke.
Get out of my head.
It's just this is like a lawyer ad you would see on Earth.
Yeah.
But it's an alien, and instead of money, he takes space credits.
Yeah, it's not even it was literally just space credits. They didn't even come up with a funny name, and instead of calling him Joe Lawyer or whatever, Mom and Joe Lawyer, it was just
Larry Zeeblezorp.
Yeah, it's what? Who cares? That's so.
Yeah, that was just
now, when
nothing.
you say young, this is what I wanted to bring back before. When you said, is it maybe written for a younger demographic? That's the type of joke that you give very young children to teach them the basics of jokes. Where you go, all right, we're preparing you for when you're a little bit older. This is how humor works, and you go see, it's supposed to be a lawyer's name, but it's an alien.
It's Zeeblezorp.
So and instead of money, it's space credits, and then a 3-year-old goes, oh, okay, that's funny, and and they laugh at it, and then when you do a real joke, they go, oh, now I get what you're doing. So and it just felt really Saturday morning baby cartoon, like joke.
It did feel Saturday morning. Also, we're going to need to work on some sort of animated series that teaches children the building blocks of comedy.
It should be Dalek. It should be a Dalek teaching. First you do the setup, then you do the punchline.
His name is Saddlesore. That is not an Earth name.
Entering atmosphere.
Have your cups lost their suck?
Slipped on some drool? Larry H. Siebelsorp will have you rolling in space credits. Wow, this place is completely alien.
But they get to the planet, and I thought there was just a string of just jokes? Question mark.
So they changed the planet's color.
Yeah, they're like, we can change the planet's color at will, and they do. Okay.
And
we can do the thing, and then they did the thing.
Yeah, like that's not a
that's
joke.
Not even close to being a joke.
It's not a joke. It's just a thing.
Yeah.
This is if you're teaching young children
Yeah.
sentence structure. Like this is a verb. The verb is the action.
Right. Yeah.
And then comes the subject and then the predicate.
The predicate. Oh, we're losing our minds. We're recording this a lot later than we usually do.
Yeah, high on Popeyes.
Yeah. And then there was like the gag. This was actually sort of funny where they show them their birthing chamber and they're like...
Yeah, it wasn't...
One alien gives birth to like 20 aliens, and then each of those aliens gives birth to another 20, and then another 20, and then it just like stops.
It wasn't so much funny as it was just, again,
it was
good
weird.
animation.
It was good animation. It was unexpected.
Yeah, it was...
So this episode, I was really just looking for the moments where I was shocked out of my horror. Where it was just like, I didn't expect that.
It was well done. The sound design was just like the gooey...
Yeah, they're like...
Yeah, like, exactly. I like the fart sound.
Yeah, we like the fart noises.
Like the animation, the visual, the sound, it all, it's nice when everything comes together and works.
Right. But then right after that it was, and we also throw our dead into a river of their own drool, and it just cuts to them literally doing that, and just dead bodies floating down a river. Playing bagpipes.
Although you like the little bagpipe.
Well, I kind of... Okay, so there's a a Kang and Kodos style Rigelian, I guess, alien playing the bagpipes as these dead bodies are going down the river. And then he's like, take 5. And it turns out his bagpipe was a little alien, and the little alien sneaks away to have a cigarette, and it just goes like a bagpipe noise. My explanation was not funny. I recognize that.
But... And I just gave you like a side glance, and you turned to me, you're like, I thought it was funny.
It got me in the moment.
But the fact that you defended yourself, that means deep down you knew it wasn't funny. You know what else was weird?
Yeah.
Their spaceship that they carried the Simpsons in, Kang and Kodos spaceship, was like an old 50s Chevy with tail fins. It was just like a hover version of an old classic 50s car.
Yeah.
That was the exact same spaceship that the Neutrinos use in the Ninja Turtles
you mean the
cartoon.
hot rodding teenagers from Dimension X?
Yeah, exactly.
Yup.
Yeah, duh. You're like, who doesn't know Brother Wright and the Neutrinos?
The hit band from the 80s?
With their hit song OST Moostis NT. That won't make sense because he was also our Latin teacher.
That is
everybody's like, that's not French, that's Latin. That's the first declination of Latin.
No, everyone turned off the podcast as soon as that came out of your mouth.
But it was the exact same spaceship as the hot rodding Neutrinos from Dimension X. So I was just like, come on, Simpsons,
Yeah. Oh, you think we didn't watch the 1989 Ninja Turtles
you think
episodes?
You could just steal?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, you think you could just steal spaceships from 1990s Ninja Turtles and we wouldn't notice?
Cool, Daddy-O, we are frozen.
That is a line.
That's a line from the episode. They weren't that cool when you think about it.
They were no Daleks.
Yeah, and then another act break happened, and then I thought there were just more jokes that were not.
Yeah.
Like, you see the Simpsons getting put into a zoo on the planet, and there's an alien mother with her children, and she's like, don't look at those birds. You could see them anytime. Look at the zoo animals. And the zoo animal's a kitten, and they run away because they're scared of the kitten.
I think that's like joke 101. Like,
that was like something.
It's like teaching kids, like, hey, the joke is that the aliens think that the weird, crazy thing is normal, and the normal thing...
Right.
Like,
but it just did...
It's baffling.
The execution just was not there.
The whole thing is just stupid. Like, it's too simple. It was really just jokes 101. It was 101 jokes to tell, that little paperback book that you would get from Scholastic Books.
Oh, yeah.
Mail order.
Yeah.
It's just it's basic joke telling that you teach babies to learn jokes. It shouldn't be in any Simpsons episode. It shouldn't be in this. You'd think 26 years they'd get better every year. Why did they stop getting better after 8 years? I don't understand.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Oh man, I feel like a few people are like, you guys are too negative on the show. It's like, all right, we'll try to be more fair. And now I'm just shitting on this shit.
Well, I didn't think this episode was like terrible.
I really didn't either.
Well, I mean, we'll get to it when we rank.
It's an angry indifference.
Yeah, it's an angered indifference. It's a learned indifference to HD poopy episodes.
That is a technical term.
Yeah, HD poopy episodes.
Keeping it academic here on the worst episode of the podcast.
That is right. Also, they made some weird references to Fortran, which is an old, obscure programming language.
Yeah.
That's a Futurama thing.
Yeah. Okay. I also, even though I didn't know what it was, and I was like, isn't 4chan some kind of online form?
No, 4chan is different.
I still appreciated the joke, and where they say what was the setup? It was they were listing a bunch of things. Oh, they were teaching they teach all the alien students physics and math and all this advanced science.
Right, and the best programming language, Fortran.
Or just the fact that they said Fortran, I was like, oh, I get it. It's funny they're teaching them this obscure
and outdated.
Yeah, I like that. But then they go, it's the best programming language ever. It was just like,
right.
And it was literally that's the joke.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's
just
when
clubbing it over.
And this is something we have seen in a lot of the episodes we covered, where they
make the joke,
and it's not bad. And then they drive it home, like drive into the ground.
Yeah, it's like, hey, you see that joke we just made? That was a good one.
They actually have like a vaudevillian, the guy from the 1920s just pop in from the corner of the frame and go, that's the joke.
That's the joke, sir.
Jokes here.
Get your giggles in.
Violence there.
There was that moment. Okay, I thought this was a pretty funny joke, actually. So the Simpsons are in the zoo. A man
walks into a bar.
He says, ouch, continue laughing. No, they're in the zoo, and Lisa has this moment with a Lisa-looking alien who kind of sympathizes with her, and they have like this kind of almost touching moment, and she gives Lisa a toy, and it's a ball, and Lisa tries to bounce it, and it shatters, and she's like, oh God, what did you do? She goes, I thought it was a ball, and it was like, no, that's the one thing it can never be.
Yeah, I
thought that was good.
I don't know if I thought it was funny. I was just so happy. I appreciated that it was like kind of complex compared to, because it literally followed the kitten bird.
Yeah, it was
joke.
right after that.
And at least this was something where I'm not sure if I got it. It's just like, I guess the joke was that she was kind of hip. That's the one thing it could never be. It was just, but I just appreciated that it was a little bit smarter.
Okay, so it was almost the same joke as the cat thing, where the thing is something that's normal on Earth amazes these aliens.
Right.
But then they kind of went further by having it be, that's the one thing it can never be.
More
like she knows what a ball is. Yeah.
It's got a little bit more to it.
Yeah,
and that's really like
there was more meat on the joke bone.
Like 45 seconds.
Joke bone's not a bad episode.
Like in 45 seconds, that encapsulates exactly what you can do right, or what you can do wrong, or what you can do almost kind of right.
Yeah,
no, that was interesting. I liked that. That was one of the more. I can't say I really liked it, but at least I was like, this is something I haven't seen.
Yeah.
Or not even that. Just
something a little different.
Yeah.
And then things take a dark turn when they have to decide which one's going to be eaten. It has to be unanimous.
Yeah.
And everyone picks Homer, including Homer.
Homer picks the boy.
Reluctantly picks himself, yes.
And then they treat it like a really, we complain when the show doesn't have heart. And again, I didn't think they thought this did have heart. They have the music, and they have Homer's, Dan Castellaneta's voice acting. They have it. It seemed
you're talking specifically when Homer chooses to change his vote to himself.
He writes the boy, and then he writes the boy *S, the boy's father, and it was
me.
Yeah. It was almost like you are Lisa Simpson, where it's this poignant thing on paper, like the way they worded it, and with the music and the voice acting, the way it seemed, it looked like that was supposed to be a very heartfelt, emotional thing. That's like, oh look, Homer.
Right.
Even though the setup was Homer was totally fine with killing Bart.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna rewrite the joke a little bit. Here's what didn't work. The entire family has no problem just saying, yeah, Homer.
Yeah,
And then the
there's
emotional
no-
beat is supposed to be that Homer sacrifices himself to go along with his family who already wanted to kill him.
They were fine.
That's why it didn't work.
They didn't
because
struggle too much with it, and Homer didn't
Right.
struggle with picking Bart.
At that point, Homer doesn't have a choice because it's supposed to be unanimous, or else
Right.
they're all going to get killed. So he kind of has to for his family, but it's not.
Although-
it's not a self-sacrifice if you're being forced to do
Right.
it.
The Homer from Bonfire of the Manatees would have just not picked himself and let them
Yeah,
all
no, he would have
get eaten.
escaped on a jet ski and started filming a porno movie. But a way that you could have done it is maybe the aliens pulled Homer aside and said, "You have to choose which one gets eaten, or else
Oh,
you all get
that's
eaten."
interesting.
And then Homer thinks
And
about
he's not
putting
even
Bart.
an option. Oh yeah, okay.
Well, Homer thinks about putting Bart, or he thinks about something else, and he sees his family, and they're miserable looking, and then he's like, "Oh, I'll pick myself." Boom.
You're
done.
right. No, that would have been a million times better.
Million
It's,
times
it's
better.
not, it's not Oscar worthy. No offense, but
Well,
it's
Academy, I'm awaiting my nomination.
No, I was talking about Oscar the Grouch. It wasn't worthy of his trash home.
Yeah, this joke wouldn't even fit in my trash can. That's my Oscar the Grouch.
It's better than our Daleks, which frankly I've been thinking about it. They kind of sound like the B-52s. I am a Dalek.
I'm going to the Love Shack, baby. I hope your neighbors, the neighbors here at We Studios,
so mad at
are
us
just
right
like,
now.
what is happening?
I would
Again,
love-
later than normal. We're
I
losing
want
it.
I want a Dalek.
We both worked a full day of work. We usually do this on the weekends.
I want a Dalek talk show with a Dalek B-52s band
Yeah.
on the side. Can we make that happen? Can it just be an all Dalek late night talk
I
show?
picture like a Letterman Paul Schaefer kind of situation where he
exactly.
throws it to him and he's like, "Ha ha, you did it again, Dave!"
Have you seen the news? They were all wearing matching towels.
So if you're not a B-52's Doctor Who fan, you have no idea what's going on.
Number one, Butterfuco, Butterfuco, Butterfuco.
His name was Butterfuco.
All right,
cut all of this.
Yeah, we have to
That's-
stop.
that's
We
not
just
gonna-
lost all of our. Nobody.
Yeah.
If there's one thing you really want to hear in your headphones at 7 a.m. heading to work. It's
people
bad
screaming.
Dalek impressions and B-52. Oh gosh.
This might be our most crazy episode too.
I like
in
the-
addition to the one we're talking about.
I like where they didn't know that K's were silent. I've been saying
I did
kitchen.
too. And that was one of those weird wordplay jokes that sometimes are not. They don't land so well, but this did. It was like
Because it makes sense because the aliens don't know. And
yeah.
it's a very
What was it? Was
basic
it
joke.
knife? It's a silent K,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Oh, we didn't know it was silent. I've been saying."
And then the other one
kitchen."
said, I was saying kitchen. It
Yeah.
was just well executed, yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
All right, so Homer escapes. He gets rescued by hippie aliens.
Yeah, and I want to say one
Yeah.
thing loosely about that. There was a moment early. Okay, so the episode is ultimately about the aliens are going to eat people, right? And there was a quick moment where Lisa said something like, "Oh, I bet you're not blaming me for being vegetarian now." Because she, has moral and ethical problems with eating meat, and, now Homer would understand it because he is the meat. But that was kind of shoehorned in, to this one moment, and then it almost became a bigger part of the episode when he met up with those hippies, and they were also vegetarians. And I thought, why wouldn't they set it up a little bit earlier? Maybe at the Disney World thing, Homer is
Something,
like, "Oh, why don't you eat meat?" And she's like, "Oh, you wouldn't like it if you were getting eaten." And that
Yeah.
sets up the reason we're having this episode.
That would have been a little bit better foreshadowing. I think we're a little spoiled now because we saw a couple
I know, we
episodes
are.
that did it well, and they can't all be winners. They can't
Yeah.
all be Mockingjay Part 1.
That's right.
But
that classic movie where people just sit in a basement.
I did like the design of the whole hippies storyline, even though it wasn't very funny. It was very
didn't do
70s
much.
sci-fi, which I was vaguely familiar with. I love the original Planet of the Apes. There's a few 70s cultish. I'm a big sci-fi guy, and 70s sci-fi is a very specific era. I've always liked.
Yeah.
But I've been reading about it in depth lately on the Dissolve.
The
There's
Laser Age
the Laser
columns.
Age column.
Yep, I love 'em.
If you guys haven't checked it out and you are sci-fi fans, I was gonna say sci-fi nerds. Fuck it. If you're sci-fi nerds, check it out. It's a
Yeah.
really great column, and it focuses strictly on late 60s, early
60s through-
70s sci-fi movies.
And I think it's ultimately going through the early 80s.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, that whole hippie scene was very evocative of those type of movies because
Right.
it wasn't just sci-fi. It was also it was of its age. It was very counterculture. So the white robes and the fact that there was a hippie resistance. It was very Zardoz and
Right.
and, Omega Man.
Yep,
and,
yep.
So I appreciated the visuals of it and maybe even the larger beat of it. But then again, wasn't funny. The hippie,
Yeah.
there was all just dumb hippie sex jokes. And do you want to talk about the broccoli?
Yep, I was just gonna say the weird broccoli thing.
So then they say how they're vegetarians, and he goes, oh, so you eat broccoli? And they go, oh no, space broccoli has the most feelings of all. You know, they cried for 6 years when we stepped on it, and then the space broccoli comes out,
yeah,
and it looks like a Schoolhouse Rock type of broccoli animation.
Yeah, you're right.
And he's just like, are you talking about me?
Yeah, and like, no, we're talking about Earth broccoli, and it's like, I hate Earth broccoli, and then he like leaves.
Yeah, and that was very like Saturday morning cartoon. Like it really felt out of place, and I don't even think we hated it because it was just so goofy.
That was so weird and unexpected that it was kind of like, okay, I can respect them for doing something different.
It was like a mix of like 60s, like 70s Schoolhouse Rock and like modern Adult Swim.
Yeah,
weird,
just like absurd.
Teen. Yeah, it just felt completely out of place. We don't know what to think of it.
No, yeah, it was jarring. It was around this point that I wrote down that this episode could have been okay if they tied it in together more. Now that I'm even thinking about it, if it had been like, if this episode had hung on the vegetarian thing and Homer becoming a meal for some other higher being, like I was saying before, that would have really made it a lot better. You already said that. If
the vegetarian thing was actually kind of the spine or some like the thematic spine for it, at least you would have had something. You would have had a little. And you could have had Homer not meat, but like fake meat on the bone.
Fake meat on the joke bone. But it could have even been like Homer and Lisa have this confrontation about vegetarianism, and then Homer falls asleep, and that's what leads to this. Yeah, he has this elaborate dream, and it could have actually made sense and not been like a cop out.
And the dream would have satisfied a lot of people. Again, I think I'm with Algene on this one. With so what? Who cares? But
all right, I'm just trying to tie things together.
You're definitely in the majority. A lot of people were pissed about breaking the canon, and that is a very easy fix. So they should have done it.
Right. I mean, not that this episode broke the canon more than other episodes.
No,
have.
The way our list is.
Singing magical elves is not that far away from space aliens.
Homer being a terrible husband is breaking the show more so.
We think that's worse. Yeah, that's why it's our worst episode.
Homer being a horrible father and husband is to us worse than Homer going to another planet.
Speaking of Homer being horrible. This was an interesting one, especially because earlier today I was watching season 3 episode When Flanders Failed. Mm-hmm. So Homer's with the resistance hippies, and they lead him to a spaceship, and it's like, oh, anything you imagine will appear in the spaceship, kind of like the potato chip thing before. And he pictures like all these donuts and all these things, and like really quickly you see a bunch of things that Homer would want appear. Right. And one of the things is Flanders and both of his children dead, hanging on nooses. Right. And I just went, holy shit, that is so dark.
But haven't they had Homer wish
that's the reason that I'm bringing up When Flanders Failed. So if you remember that episode, he and Flanders, they wish on a wishbone, and Homer is thinking about what he wants to wish for, and the first thing he thinks of is Flanders like poor and crying,
very spiteful.
And then it's he thinks of Flanders in front of the Leftorium, and it has gone out of business. It's called Flanders' Stupid Leftorium. And then the next one is Rip Ned Flanders, his grave, and Homer's like, no, that's too far. And then he brings it back one. But this, he's gone well beyond that. We're actually seeing bodies of him and his children.
I feel like since
it's what you're saying before, where they just keep they do old things, but they have to go above and beyond and be edgy.
I feel like Homer has wished horrible things about Flanders since then, and I'm not talking like when Flanders Failed is early. I feel like even in the later classic, like season 7 and 8, there's where it's dark like that. But but again, I see they're hanging from the rafters. It was, and the kids.
It's kind of like the when Homer got his hands broken by the mafia. We're seeing it. It's right there on the screen. It's not just the idea of it.
I did like Homer kept eating his glaze.
Yeah, that was another one that was just like...
It went on too long.
That's a joke, I guess. It went on too... The joke being that the aliens like glazing the family members because they're about to cook them.
I think
and
it's
Homer
the
keeps licking
execution.
his.
It was the alien having his back turned and like Homer being behind him, and the pace. I really like the pacing of the joke and then they did it a second time.
But what's the joke other than Homer eats
that's
glaze?
One of the cases where that's one of the situations where it's not so much joke. It's just the
visual,
it's just,
the idea.
It's like the pacing. It's just like the how Arrested Development. A lot of it is just in the awkward beats in between the two characters.
I guess, but it's weird because the alien. He turns his back from glazing Homer, and Homer's like, I'm not glazed yet. And the alien's like, like getting upset about it. I was just like, why? Why does he care?
It tickled my joke bone. I don't know why.
The old joke bone.
Tickled the fake meat on my joke bone.
The old crazy town joke bone.
What? Man, we gotta not do our nighttime podcast. It's a bad idea.
If we wanted to recap this episode in one sentence, I would have said, this is an episode where someone eats Homer's ass cheek. Which happens, it's an alien eats it.
Yeah, that was a weird visual. I never thought I'd see a disembodied Homer ass cheek.
Yep.
I did.
But you did.
So then the end, they get out of it because they have fast food. They eat a lot of fast food, so the toxins in their body, the aliens can't digest it. It was a very Twilight Zone ending where it's just, it's kind of like War of the Worlds. It was just a half-assed,
moral kind of at the end.
I think they would have been...
don't eat fast food.
I thought, I like it in that, even though it's really, really simple, I do like the fact that because we eat such shit as Americans, that, I like that.
Oh, you mean like delicious Popeye's chicken?
Yeah, exactly. So like that's like a modern day version of like the War of the Worlds ending with the germs.
Yeah.
I like that. I feel like it would have been a great capper for a Halloween segment. It's too weak to justify to be a twist for a whole
If they had
episode.
done my idea of making the whole episode about vegetarianism,
and then the fast food,
then it would have made a lot more
You,
sense.
sir, are onto something.
I'm
there.
onto something.
Yeah,
I'm going to go back in time and rewrite this episode.
Rewrite the episode.
Go fight the Daleks.
Invent time travel so that you could write a fake space episode.
If the doctor is out there, I will help you fight the Daleks if you help me rewrite this episode.
The doctor is actually the announcer on the Dalek talk show. I wish I could do a Scottish accent. I would do the 8th Doctor announcing the guests, and then...
It's the Daleks, run for your life. that's my attempt to do Christopher Eccleston.
I was thinking the new one, Peter Capaldi.
Oh.
I guess they're all Scottish, huh?
That's not the 8th Doctor. He's like the 13th
I didn't say the
Doctor.
8th Doctor.
Yeah, you did.
Did I?
You did.
8th season.
Play it back. Rewind it.
No, you're right. 12th
The
Doctor.
8th Doctor. My name is Jack. See, it was there.
It was there. We just played it back on the tape machine. It was the 8th season, 12th Doctor. My bad.
All right, we are getting crazy loopy here.
Yeah, so let's
finish it up.
With the Star Trek. Then all of a sudden they decide to do Star Trek parodies one after another. Like out of nowhere, they start doing it, and it starts with. Well, first there was one of the recorders used a vintage Star Trek sound effect, which I appreciated.
Right.
Again, although that's very Futurama to just appropriate sound effects.
Very Futurama to do a lot of
Also,
Star Trek references.
We missed this. The space doctor, the joke about the space doctor, the alien doctor who studies humans, the joke was that he doesn't know human anatomy.
It's completely Zoidberg. Completely Zoidberg. You're right. I didn't even think of that. Yeah.
So throwing that out there. But anyway, so then the episode ends with them going back to Earth, and Homer does Captain's log, and he's sitting like Shatner.
Yeah, and Marge is positioned like
Uhura earpiece.
Yep.
And it's just straight up starts. And again, why?
Yeah.
There's no joke. He's literally just doing a Captain's log sum up of the episode.
Right.
But there's nothing funny. It's just, this is a thing.
It's just like, well, we were in space, so we may as well bring Star Trek into it, right? Yeah. Well, no, not necessarily. If you want to do an episode that's a Star Trek parody, that's different.
I love the vintage 70s, very subtle 70s references.
Yeah.
And then you have here's the Star Trek Captain's log, not going to bother doing jokes, just here it is.
And then over the credits, there were just like scenes of Simpsons characters as different like Star Trek characters over the years. Like Milhouse was like a Ferengi from
and that's
Deep
like
Space
just
Nine.
Fun animation. I'm sure the Star Trek nerds and Simpsons.
Honestly, I actually kind of like that. Like if you're gonna do like a Star Trek thing at the end, that makes sense to do. I kind of liked it.
Space broccoli has the most advanced feelings of any creature in the universe.
I stepped on a piece once, and it cried for 6 years.
Frankly, they are a little full of themselves.
Who are you talking about?
Earth broccoli?
Yeah, I hate those guys. They're thick, they're so big.
Let's go, Homer.
All right, Jack, we need to start ending this episode.
Yeah, let's rank it.
Because
it was rank. I like the way
that's a good
wordplay.
You could write for The Simpsons.
Maybe I will.
So now's the time in the episode where we're going to rank this episode with the other episodes that we have watched so far. And just off the top of the bat, Jack, what quadrant, let's say, do you think this episode belongs in? You want to put it in the bottom few? You want to put it in the top few? Right in the middle?
Man, we should have. I haven't thought about this at all. I really don't know because again, I didn't hate this episode, even though we spent an hour shitting on it.
I don't know. I'm thinking middle to lower.
I mean, I don't want to compare. I want to compare this to all episodes, but for now, let's just compare it to other HD era because they're the closest in tone and in humor and such. So we actually have two HD episodes right next to each other. In the quadrant, I think we're thinking at number 10 and number 11 is What to Expect When Bart's Expecting, and number 11 is How I Met Your Mother. How I Met Your Mother is actually a great episode to compare this to because it's an Inception parody that's also full canon.
Right.
Frank builds a machine and they go into Homer's dream.
That's a very good point. Yep.
So I think this episode, I would say this episode is funnier. Okay, so emotionally speaking, I'd say it's on the same level as with Homer's peeing his pants and his mother issues.
Yeah.
If anything, maybe How I Met Your Mother is a little stronger, but it's close. Where I think this episode's much funnier. I think the space visuals were better than the dream visuals. I would say this is better than How I Met Your Mother.
I agree with you that it's better than How I Met Your Mother, but I actually thought the visuals in the episode were kind of weak. I mean, some of it was nice, like the birthing thing that we talked about was good.
It had
but
good...
like the backgrounds in the Space Alien, they just looked like those Dr. Seuss cartoons from the 70s.
I didn't say this
80s.
earlier. I did like the spaceport before they realized the spaceship was I thought it was very well done. Again, very 80s, 70s sci-fi.
The whole
always.
Disney part had good animation, I guess.
Yeah, but... I don't remember anything great about How I Met Your Mother. I didn't like the Inception stuff.
No, I think it's definitely better than that one. And I actually think it's better than What to Expect When Bart's Expecting, too.
Yeah, I think so, too. So that's next is Pennywise Goes, also, I think, an HD era with Steve Carell.
That's the Steve Carell episode. I think this is kind of better than that one.
Yeah, again...
Because at least the Simpsons were in this episode.
But at least it stood out. It was a little bit more... Like, the Pennywise guys was so dull.
This was a more interesting episode.
And that one, the problem was it wasn't about the Simpsons. It was about Steve Carell.
Yeah.
This one is about the Simpsons, for better or worse. Yeah, I agree. Better than that.
But then we get to Romy Old and Juliet, the episode where Grandpa marries Selma.
Which sounds terrible, but it wasn't executed too terribly.
It wasn't, but I think that one did more to kind of break the show than this one did.
Yeah.
I kind of do.
All right, so let's break it down to its component parts again.
Sure.
So what would you say is funnier, Romy Old or this episode? I would say Romy Old's funnier. Joke by joke.
I don't remember a lot of the jokes from Romeo. That's the problem.
I don't remember
that was
specific.
8 weeks ago.
I remember it feeling.
Fresher.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of weird stuff we didn't like the whole grandpa. Well,
yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff in this one.
Yeah. All right.
You know what? Would you say which would you say is funnier? If you had a gun to your head.
All right, I'd probably say Romeo Old is funnier.
I would say easily the Romeo Old's better on an emotional level. The emotional story is better. So, if anything, all right, which one's more original? This one.
This one's definitely more
Romeo
original.
Old was, Selma marrying somebody is not original.
No.
So this episode beats it on that. But which episode now? It's pretty much which episode broke The Simpsons. You think that Patty and the Selma and Grandpa one broke the episode harder than this episode that takes them to space?
Rigel space. Well, because at least, Grandpa and Selma getting married, there's some semblance of reality, but it's an uncomfortable reality. Where this one, it's, we're in Crazy Town land where nothing makes sense anymore.
Well, I disagree. I really think this is, if I could pick, I would put this probably somewhere around Homer vs. That's 90s Show. Mm-hmm. So I owe you a couple. I'm fine with putting it right. It feels right to put it right in the middle of our list.
It does, yeah.
Even though if I think about it too much and I break it to compare it to the other episodes, I don't think so. Generally speaking, it feels like it belongs smack in the middle of our list.
All right, that is where it's going. We're going to put it between Romeo Old and Juliet and Pennywise guys. I seem to remember us saying, those two episodes are really close. We're going to keep them side by side for a long time. Well, we're done with that.
That's an ignorant statement.
Yeah, we don't know what we're doing here.
Yeah, so I said at the top of the show, if I could describe this episode in one word, it would be so. Middle of the list seems like a perfect place for a so episode.
Yeah.
And even if I disagree with where we're putting it specifically, so.
There you go.
Really, I know we sounded a little angry, or at least I sounded angrier than it's really just more indifferent than angry.
I mean,
I get the canon breaking stuff. I get why people really were like. I think we do have an advantage that we were jaded from a month of
we do.
You guys were kind of our buffer, like an atmosphere with a comet.
Yeah.
Like you guys kind of took the blunt force of the shock of seeing such a ridiculous episode away from us.
Right.
And we thank you.
Yeah, really.
But I can't get on board with outright hating this episode.
Yeah. Why don't we hate it again? We didn't really like it that much. Did we completely misplace it? Maybe it should be the worst episode
I
ever.
really did hate it.
You're right. It's just kind of bland.
It wasn't torture for me to sit down and watch, unlike some of our
I laughed
episodes.
a few times, so that's better than you can say about some
I
of our
laughed,
worst
I
episodes.
cried. A manic depressive. That's a great critic joke.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So let's wrap it up.
All right, that is it for this episode, guys and gals. But if you have a terrible Simpsons episode that you would like to suggest for worst episode ever, you can do that at worstepisodepod@gmail.com. That's our email. Our Twitter is @worstepisodepod, and we're on Facebook, facebook.com/weepodcast, WEE podcast. And we have a lot of great conversations and kind of discussions happening on our website and on our Facebook. Twitter is mostly just people tweeting dick pics at me for some reason. Please don't tweet dick pics at me.
Well, if it helps our traffic.
Cut all this.
I don't check the Twitter, so dick pic away, guys. I don't care. So
what have we done now? You can check out our website. It's weepodcast.com. Again, you can read the show notes. You can stream and download old episodes there. Let us know what you think. Check us out on iTunes. You may have already gotten this episode from iTunes, but we would love it if you would leave us a review. We've gotten some great reviews, including one that said we were the empty nest podcast that the world deserves.
We love that.
We really love that one, so thank you for that. And if you could read us on Stitcher, too. Jack, we actually have multiple Stitcher reviews now.
You left a second one?
No, we have 3, and 2 of them are not me.
Wow.
Although one of them references the only review for this show was the host, and it was sad, so I'm reviewing.
Hey, we'll take pity good reviews.
Yeah, totally. They were all 5 stars, so
we'll take the pity reviews.
So that is good stuff. If you are listening to this the day it comes out, or the day after it comes out, you may still have time to get to Woohoo Classic Simpsons Trivia in Brooklyn. You have to be in the Brooklyn area if you want to go. You can't teleport in yet. But that is at Berry Park in Williamsburg. It's co-hosted by myself and friend of the show, Dan Ozzie. That is the first Thursday of every month, but that will be the first Thursday
I'll
of
be
February.
there if you want to chat Empty Nest or classic Neutrinos, Dimension
Absolutely.
X, Ninja Turtles. I'm there at the bar with my red hat.
We could probably have a whole podcast about Neutrinos and Ninja Turtles. But yeah, that's in Brooklyn. There are also nights in Toronto and Chicago. Vancouver, I think, has one. There's a bunch of ones in Canada. Just Google Woohoo Classic Simpsons Trivia. You can find out more information about that. So next week we will have a new contender for their worst episode ever, and that is going to be season 21's Mo Letter Blues.
Sounds like a Mo episode.
I know nothing about it. I bet it has to do with Mo. I bet it has to do with letters. Might have to do with the color blue.
Maybe a little blue.
Who knows? Thanks guys for listening, and
now for stupid pet tricks.
Riding on a bug, riding on a bug. You'd rather be in school than riding on a bug. Riding on a bug, riding on a bug.
Don't be damned.
In school than riding on
Like a rumba.
Don't get off the bug, don't get off the bug. Certain death awaits if you get off the bug. Welcome to the bug, welcome to the